Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat Five segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Big Fat Five, a segment of the podcast financially supported by Big Fat Snare Drum, where I talk to drummers about the stories and records that shaped their sound. I'm your host, Ben Hilsinger, and today I'm joined by Jesse Boyle, my good buddy and the drummer for the boundary-pushing band Chase Atlantic. Known for blending genres like alternative, R&B, and electronic music, Jesse's unique approach drives the pulse behind Chase's immersive live soundscapes. And we also get into a newer career he started, all because he gave himself permission. And I think it's important for everyone to stay tuned through the end of the episode to check that out. But anyways, here's Jesse. Cheers. Well, before we get started, I guess the question will be, what was the criteria for making this list? How many did it start off as? You know, all that jazz.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough, right, to like nail it down to just 5. And even though 5 is generous, at least you're not like, what's the number one? And you're like, come on, give me a goddamn break. But I think the criteria was like, for me to really nail it down was like, what was the most fundamental to my playing and that I still draw on now, right? Like during a show or during sound check or whatever, I like find myself hitting some of these kind of grooves or like, you know what I mean? So that kind of muscle memory, for lack of a better term, the kind of, the roots of my playing, that's kind of what helped to get a bit easier. But man, there's a lot of great records. So it was tough for sure.
Do you ever find yourself doing things live, like you're saying, the muscle memory, and you're like, damn it, I wish I didn't always do this?
Yes, dude. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just such I don't know, habit, I feel like is the wrong word, but habit, you know? But at the same time, like you see other drummers like, whoever else playing or a friend or whatever, and they have their thing. So it still somehow kind of keeps it fresh. So like, even though it's like repetitive to you, it's still fresh to other people. So yeah, I guess just trying to remind yourself of that is like a big thing. But I definitely feel like I would love to break some of that at some point, but I also love it. So it's okay.
I like that angle. Just because you're sick of yourself doesn't mean that other people are sick of you yet.
Yet. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and also, so doing a little, because we're friends, obviously, outside this podcast, but I didn't know that you started in nightclubs in Singapore at 15.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was a rambunctious little fella, and I got a fake ID when I was 15. We moved to Singapore for my mum's work. She got a job over there. And I was like, oh, I want to go out and like see stuff. I'm bored. And made some friends, got a fake ID, and went to this nightclub called Zirka Nightclub, which I don't think exists anymore. I think it may have closed down, but it was massive at the time. And the capacity, it was like 1,500, maybe 2,000 capacity kind of club, and everyone kind of dancing. So, it wasn't like a little hole in the wall by any stretch. And there was this stage there, right? It could be a touring venue if it wanted to be. And it was a stage, and there was this DJ Inquisitive, which I still speak to maybe like once every 6 months, maybe a year. Like we kind of keep in touch where we can, but he's killing it now. But he was DJing. He was a resident at this nightclub. It's massive stage, and he's playing dubstep. And I was like tapping along, and I was like, I can play drums to this. This is just electronic metal. You know what I mean? Like it's the same breakdowns, same structures. Like I could play drums to this, and call it, I don't know, naivety or just overconfidence or whatever, but I cornered him after his show outside, and I was like, hey man, I want to play drums with you. And he was like, what the fuck are you talking about, kid? Like, get away from me. And I was like, no, hear me out. Like DJ drum show. And I think this was around the time, not to be that guy, but I feel like it was around maybe just before the Travis Barker DJ AM stuff. But I could be wrong. I could be
I'll
wrong.
give it to you.
Give it to me, please. But no. So he was like, all right, whatever. Go record yourself. Show me what you mean because it's not making any damn sense. So I was like, okay. So I went to the school the next day and went to like there's like a camera department and I just like took a bunch of their shit, set up my drum kit in the school car park, set up the cameras around it, and then yeah, did like a drum cover of a Skrillex song. And then I had to teach myself how to edit and like put it all together. So I was like kind of trying to figure that out. And then I sent it to him and he was like, "Oh, this is actually kind of cool. Do you want to play this weekend?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I do." So we did. And it was a massive hit and end up playing there a bunch of times. Yeah. And then from there, we moved back to Australia and I kept this kind of DJ drum show thing happening for a little bit after that. And then that kind of led me to being linked up with the Chase Atlantic guys before Chase Atlantic was really Chase Atlantic was anything. Because Clinton came into the nightclub one night, saw me playing. He's like, "Hey man, you can play drums. Do you want to join this band thing that we're doing?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." And yeah, the rest is history.
So did they mic'd up your drums and they treated it like a full show?
Yeah, so I actually had to go get drum mics because, nightclub dudes, they were like, "What do you mean the
Yeah.
drums need to be mic'd or whatever?" And so went and hired a bunch of drum mics with like my pocket change because I'm 15. And the front of house guy there was like, apparently he mixed it. I'm sure it probably sounded terrible, but the energy was there. So it didn't really matter, right? And yeah, they fully figured it out. So.
Dude, that's awesome. Kids listening, go be a go-getter. Do shit. Just do shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's like if you think something's cool and you have a good feeling about it, why not? And then like go down that rabbit hole, and then if you run into a wall that like an immovable object, you're like, "Oh, this actually is impossible," then fine, that's all good. I'm sure you learned something on the way, but you really never know. Like, why not? You got time.
Well, we'll get into more stuff that I think, your mentality of just doing shit, which we'll get to later. But let's just hop into your first one. And so before we get going, I'll ask you, are these in any particular order of how they were introduced to you? Or is this just, there's no right answer?
No, this first one was introduced to me, I think, when I was like, my mum was a big fan, is a big fan. So I listened to it a lot as a little kid. And this is one of the earliest records I remember touching the album artwork and like stuff that we don't get as much these days anymore, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Just like really just like sitting there with the headphones on and we're listening through the speakers and just like immersing myself in this record. So yeah, it's one of my earliest memories of music in general, really.
Okay. Well, before we start talking more about it, I'll say what it is. The album's Reggatta Blanc. The artist is The Police. Stewart's been all over my feed lately, just with this being a little more boisterous on his career. He's been on Drumeo recently, and it's really, Stewart's all over the place with me. But the release here for this record's 1979. Key tracks, again, listen to the whole record, but Message in a Bottle, Walking on the Moon. And like I just said, Stewart Copeland is the drummer. So take it away, and then we'll listen to one of the songs after you're done.
Stewart is a beast. It sounds a little not cliche, but like he's just got such a particular sound to him. You could hear just everything else muted and just his drum soloed rather, and you could tell it's Stewart Copeland playing, right? And like especially this record, but his playing in general really rubbed off on me. So when I perform live, I'm always doing these little runs of weird syncopation stuff on the hats, which I love. I lean into that. Now, by no stretch comparable to Stewart fucking Copeland. So please do not get it twisted.
Interesting.
But from that, I love it. Wherever I can do it, I try and do it. And it is one of those kind of habits that I have. But I feel like it just makes things so tasteful and nice. And, Message in a Bottle, the hi-hat syncopation, it works so well, but it's really what it does after it, right? It's setting up these nice accents on the ones, and it's kind of like a foreplay nearly leading up to the specific moment in a bar. Every single kind of decision he makes, right? Like a choice when they were sitting in the studio or when they were coming up with the songs, the groove it's quite interesting, really, isn't it? Because in theory, I mean, I guess like any song, you can play a song a million different ways, but his stuff is so, I don't know, kind of alien-like if you really kind of look at it. If you really just listen to the part itself, it's like man, he's kind of like all over the place. He's like doing these like weird little things, but the groove still just works so nicely, and he's just in this kind of pocket. So there's just no one that sounds like him, man.
He has the ability to make you think it's this through composed part, that he's thought about every little section and how to build it up and how to make sure that he's not exhausting any theme too long. He just has that innately in him. He like has this ability to produce a good groove in real time and knows how to tell the story to where at the end of it, you're like, wow, I was interested the whole time. There was no like skippable part. He's insane.
He is such an alien. And I think as well, like, you can tell that he's got balls, right? Because if he's just trying this stuff, you know what I mean? Like, if it doesn't work out, oh, dude, you're an idiot, you know? But like, it's just like having the courage, I guess, in any kind of situation to be like, I'm gonna try this. Here I go, you know? And I just think that's so awesome. You can feel the kind of the courage, for lack of a better term, in him and in his playing. I think is brilliant.
Yeah, whenever I record something and I do a part that's like really good or works really well, after that, going like as I keep recording, I'm playing it real safe because I'm like, I want this to be the take now because I really like what I did. But he's taking chances all the way up to the very end, and it works.
Yeah, I love it.
What a bastard. So here is, do you want to listen to Message in a Bottle?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Next one. This is actually one of like, it's like the third or fourth record I ever bought after Americana was the #1 by Offspring. But anyways, the album is By the Way. The artist is Red Hot Chili Peppers. Release year's 2002. And the key tracks, By the Way, Don't Forget Me. And the drummer's Mr. Chad Smith. So take it away.
Mr. Chad Smith eats drums for breakfast, dude. That guy crushes. But I think, you know, the reason why I picked those two songs in particular was like one of the earlier moments where I started to figure out, hey, a beat or a verse, or, you know, you can also not use cymbals. You can just groove on the snare, like in Don't Forget Me, when he's just going, you know, boom, chaka-ka-ka-dum. Or, and By the Way, when he's just riding the toms. You know, I was like, oh, wait, that's possible? You don't have to do that basic beat with the hi-hat, kick, and snare? And I think it was just so formulated for me because I was still learning. I was still trying to figure out what this instrument was. Yeah, I just thought it was really quite expressive and kind of genre blending, right? I mean, it's funk music with like an element of like rap over it, but also like not, but it's also kind of pop, and it's also kind of this and it's that and the other. And at the center of it all is just this powerhouse of Chad Smith just fucking laying down absolute bangers and just, you know, punishing those drums. So yeah, that's why I kind of picked those, because I just thought it was like, oh wait, there are more options, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a notion in your bedroom, make you feel warm, make you wanna resume. Now we know it all for sure.
This is sexy.
Hot.
Dirty break beat, make the snow fall up from underneath your feet. Not alone, I'll be there. Tell me when you wanna go. First rehab, take it all off and step inside the running cab. There's a love that knows the way. I'm the rainbow in your jail cell. All the memories of...
Well, there's two things about that I want to point out. First of all, I think the older I get and the more I talk to people on this show, it's not about the notes on the page. Because a lot of what, and I think Mark Stepbro talks about this when he was talking about Steve Ferroni on a recent drum panel episode. It's not about the notes on the page. When I was younger, it's all about the notes on the page. Like how fast can I go? How many licks can I do? But the older I get, it's like, can you make, what he's doing is not, it's pretty elementary, but he makes that feel so sexy. Like he's got such stanky feel to that. That's intangible. And then also going in the second verse, how he kind of does the Tom Phil, the do, like the triplet. I love it when a drummer, specifically Adrian Young and No Doubt does this a lot. And then because of that, I do this, where in the second verse, you kind of take the similar groove, but you do something that is syncopated in the second verse that becomes a hook that people look forward to before the second chorus. Yeah, he did that in that song, and I always love when a drummer does that.
It makes so much sense. And that's it, right? It's an element of storytelling, it really is. And I think, Young is similar to like what you were saying. It's like, how fast can I go? How many notes can I rip in this bit? Wait, my paradiddle needs to be 300 BPM. And it's like, whoa. What are we trying to actually say here? What are we trying to do with this? Like there's something, like you said it right, like it's so elementary, but if you nail the ghost notes just right, oh my God, you're going to hear a pin drop. You can just feel it, rather than worrying about trying to pull off a blast beat. And don't get me wrong, love a blast beat, but let's see where we can take it. And it's also like, it depends on the song. It's service to the song. So if it's going to be something that's sexy or dark or sad or happy or whatever, it's like, okay, well, that's your baseline. That's the baseline emotion. All right. Happy, there's a spectrum, right? Sexy, there's a spectrum. And then you start getting into these deeper layers and deeper layers and deeper layers, and you can make something so simple sound just so impactful. And I think that's where true artistry kind of lies,
Absolutely. Well, going to a drummer who's not as talked about, I mean, massive band, but maybe not individually known. It's Nathan Followill. Anyways, it's the Only by the Night. The artist is Kings of Leon. Released year's 2008. Key tracks, Closer and I Want You. And then, Nathan Followill, which is a hard last name to say, Followill.
It is. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but I feel like he doesn't get enough love. I feel like, again, he's like a really good example. It's not simplistic, because I don't want to be reductive about what he's doing. I think it's just, again, it's like the flavor, what you can do with so little, right? And I think with like In Closer, and I think most of his drumming anyway, it's like, he's not really playing polyrhythms, but he's like kind of like, I don't know, it's like weird. Like he does these like weird things, which is a lot of fun to listen to. But ultimately, it's just rock solid and services the song where it needs to be serviced. And, and like, don't get me wrong, like Virgil Donati is one of my favorite drummers of all time, is insane, alien. And we could talk about him.
Literally, I think he is an alien, yeah.
But guys like this, and it's like, okay, well, what do they do really well? And I think he adds this kind of flavor to it. And it's funny to see Kings of Leon play live, right? Because he kind of just sits there and he's like, he seems kind of rigid. I'm like, oh man, you got like relax your shoulders or something. Like you look really tight, but it's kind of robotic nearly in appearance, but in playing, it's got a really nice groove and it feels nice. Closer is one of my favorite drum beats right from the opening, from the get-go. Put some more love on his name, everyone.
Absolutely. Well, and Closer is the opening track on the record, so let's just listen to that.
Stranded in the spooky town. Stoplights are sweating and the phone lines are down. Floor is crackling cold. She took my heart, I think she took my soul. With the moon I run, far from the carnage of the fiery sun. Driven by the strangle of pain, showing no mercy, I do it again. Open up your eyes, you keep on crying, baby, I'll be dry. Skies are blinking me, I see a storm bubbling up from the sea. Now just call me closer. Now just call me closer.
Just holding it down, you know, like letting this stuff swell, being that kind of calm in this swelling of this kind of sea of just beautiful kind of music that it wants to go boom and is just like, not yet, not yet, not yet. And then it happens. And I think that's great, you know, like showing a sense of restraint, kind of opposite to like Copeland in a weird way, right? Because Copeland's like doing all this crazy shit. And then yeah, Nathan is just like locking it down. And I think in other bands that I played with growing up, like high school bands and whatever, like Kings of Leon was always such a fundamental band to me and to my friends as well. And like we watched Kings of Leon live at the O2 Arena, watch that all the time, and just learn so much from picking moments. I think is a big thing as well. He picks his moments, and yeah, man, I think he deserves a lot of respect on his name.
Pick your moments. I think that's a good way to sum him up. But let's go to number 4. The album is Color and Shape. The Color and the Shape, released years 97. The artist is Foo Fighters. And a few of the songs, I mean, My Hero, Everlong. You can't get better drum parts than that. So yeah, take it away.
You know, everyone's going to be like, of course, boring option, boring choice. But to you guys, I say, am I wrong? Am I wrong though? I mean, you know,
No.
talk about an identifiable fucking do 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 cha do 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 cha. You know, like again, one of those songs that you hear for the first time and you're like, fuck, this is hell yeah, dude. And you identify it anywhere. You know, you hear it and you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly what this is. I think with Dave and Taylor, because David, I'm pretty sure he tracked that album. He tracked the album.
Yes.
But even seeing when Taylor performed it live, rest in peace. It's a tour de force, right? Like he was one of those kind of drummers that was just rock and roll, in your face, strong, but so technical as well. Like unbelievably accurate, so accurate with loud volume. So he's mastering both, you know, and also in his defense, it's not always just, you know, in your face, it's dynamics, there's elements to it for sure.
Yeah.
But accuracy is really the biggest thing I took away from that record, but also the live performance with Taylor. And I think that informs my drumming. Well, I try for it to inform my drumming and to be very accurate. If you're going to be loud and you're going to be fast or you're going to do something crazy, be super accurate with it rather than just, you know, kind of like a sniper versus a machine gun, you know, like make sure you nail it.
I also want to say credit where credit is due. I believe William Goldsmith is on a track or two from that record too. A few of his tracks also made it. But yeah, let's listen to My Hero. All right, so number 5, the album's Toto 4. The artist is, fun fact, Toto, and the release here is 1982. Key tracks, Rosanna, can't go wrong with that, but Jeff Beccaro, so take it away.
I mean, the man really needs no introduction, does he? I mean, in the drumming world, that Rosanna halftime shuffle groove it's got, like it's just so good. But yeah, I remember being introduced to Toto for the first time by a man called Frank Corniola in Australia. So he runs Drum Tech, which is an amazing school, is an incredible instructor, and he's very well loved in the drumming community, specifically the Australian drumming community, but he's actually friends with Chad Smith and a lot of those guys. They all just love him. And he gave me the DVD to Toto, I think it's live in Paris. And he was like, watch Jeff, just watch him, just watch him. I was like, okay. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching him, and effortless. Just the way he's playing. I mean, groove goes without saying. Again, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was like his ghost note playing. It was setting these moments up in the song, hitting these specific accents, where he's hitting it, why he's not hitting specific things. And it started this record, specifically Rosanna, but all of his playing really started to point me towards the fact that there is a very, very calculated way about going about things if you want to, and which translated to is musicianship, right? It's about being a musician, a master of the craft. And what does that look like? Oh, this is a master of the craft, and this is what a master of the craft does. And I think that's just such a special education, watching him play, listening to him play, and understanding the fact like, hey, you can kind of be an architect in this, and like, hey, why don't you actually just like think about it a little bit rather than just ripping, like, what if we subtract? Maybe we don't have to add, maybe we just subtract, or maybe we lean into dynamics. What a concept, like stuff like that, which on the surface and in hindsight, now you look back, you're like, well, duh. But like at the time, again, like fundamentals, it's not kind of like what you were talking about earlier. It's about, not always necessarily about what's on the sheet. It's like, okay, well, what if we swing it? Like what if then, and really just kind of getting into the plus and minuses of it all is a lot of fun. And I think listening to Rosanna specifically was, just like, oh shit, this is really, really cool.
Yeah. And speaking of subtracting, a lot of people, like I was saying before, they say, oh, the Rosanna shuffle, and they do, well, it's the first and the third triplet, and then you ghost the second. But if you listen to the beginning of the song, he's really only ghosting. He almost does them almost just into the bass drum. He's not doing every single one of them like people that play the song always do. Because if you listen to it, or if you play every ghost note, it sounds busy. And he knows that, no, just keep on the hi-hat and then just add it in the times you want to be tasteful. And he adds them throughout the song, but don't just automatically do every number 2 of the triplet like everyone, when you're learning this groove does.
And it's so interesting, right? You said it so right. It's like everyone else that plays it, it sounds busy. When you listen to him play it, it kind of sounds busy, right? But you don't really know what busy sounds until you try and play it incorrectly, right? So it's like such a master of like, hey, there's a lot going on, but there's really not that much going on.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's mastery, right? There's a reason why everyone wants to try and play that groove.
All right, well, let's listen to Rosanna. Again, it's the opening track I didn't realize it was the opening track on Toto 4. But yeah, let's just listen to it. Well, so that's your big fat 5, but I did want to talk about another venture, and this kind of goes into drummers giving themselves permission to maybe add words onto their identity. And so you work on screenplays, you've become pretty successful at them as well in a short period of time. Talk a little bit about what made you get into it and maybe the status of what's going on with your screenplay career.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've always been so in love with the art form of film. I think I used a couple of film analogies during this podcast already. So, for years and years and years, it was always kind of like an itch on the back of my brain, right? But I found when I was younger, I was definitely kind of at the thought process where I had this self-limiting belief that, I'm a musician, I'm a drummer, and that's it, right? I'm not allowed to be anything else because that's what I do. And it's so self-limiting. And one day, it was during COVID, funnily enough. And COVID's such a funny time because I feel like a lot of people tried new things and did new things and things fell apart. I was of the class of people that relationship ended during COVID. So me and my ex broke up and I was sitting on the couch in Sydney in the height of lockdowns, and the lockdowns in Sydney were pretty gnarly at the time. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start teaching myself how to write movies and stuff. I just gave myself permission. I don't need anyone else to tell me I can do it. I don't need to believe I'm just a fucking drummer. What the fuck is that? Why would I think that way? If I like a thing, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it well. I'm not going to half-ass it, right? So 8-9 hours a day, I was just teaching myself. I was just trying to figure it out. And one thing led to another. I wrote a short film and flew out to the US because we were about to go on tour with Chase. And yeah, I directed this short film and it ended up landing on Zero Gravity Management's desk, they're the creators of Ozark and a few other pretty big movies like The Accountant and all that. And they were like, hey man, we like your short. Do you have anything else that you've written? We'd love to read it. And I was like, yeah, that was this feature script that I wrote. Fucking terrible. But I sent it to them anyway. And Jermaine, who's now my manager, came back and he was like, the bones are there, but I see where you're trying to go with it. You actually have something you want to say with this. So I'd like to sign you if you'd be down. I was like, yes, please. Thank you so much. And then I wrote another short, directed another short in just my own time because I wanted to. It's pretty simple. I just fucking wanted to, right? And I wrote a feature film, which has now been picked up by a director and a bunch of producers. They're wanting to shoot this in April. I think that's all I'm allowed to say right now, but
Sure.
It's really exciting. And, you know, we've got some really cool talent that we're talking to about it as well. And I'm excited for that. And I just finished writing another script, which I sent to my management, and they're very, very stoked with it. And so that's going to be my directional debut. So hopefully we're going to start going into pre-production and all that sometime next year. And yeah, so it's all shaping up to be a really exciting time. I'm already working on a third one right now. Like usually when on tour or at home, but like I'm on tour right now. So this is the best example I can give is like, you know, I'll be in the green room with my headphones on, listening to score orchestral music while writing. And then I'll get a tap on the shoulder, be like, hey man, you got to go on stage in like 5 minutes. I was like, oh shit. Okay. But all of that to say is you have time. If you want to do something, you know, whether it be writing, whether it be whatever you want, you can, you know, kind of like sneaking into nightclubs, you know, 15, being like, hey man, I want to do this DJ drum thing. Seems weird, but I'm into it. But fuck it, right? Like, why not, dude? And it just can work out. It really can. So long as you actually give enough respect to it. You know, you have to respect what you're doing. I mean, you can go to a rehearsal studio and fuck around for 4 hours and do nothing, you know, like, I mean, we've all had those rehearsal days, right? With the band and everyone just, someone cracks a beer and then all of a sudden we're all cracking beers and all of a sudden nothing's getting done. And you're like, but then there's those days where you get every single minute of those 4, 5 hours, 8 hours, whatever you want to do out of it. And something really special happens. Either a new song's created, you know, you're creating moments in the set and it becomes this beautiful thing. Same principles. It's the exact same principles. And I feel like a lot of drummers, specifically, like we were talking about earlier, it's like there is storytelling in our instrument. You know, there really is. Far more than a lot of people realize. We control the tone. We control the song. We are the heartbeat of this thing. And we let the audience and the band know when it's feeling good and when it's time to pull back and when we're doing this and what we're, you know, so we're telling the story, you know, we're controlling the narrative. And I think understanding that is a liberating thought. And I think when you take those principles and apply it to everything, you really can do whatever the fuck you want, you know?
I think that's the perfect way to end it. You're amazing. I can tell why people would be engaged into your storytelling. You're a great wordsmith, man.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. And I appreciate this. I think this podcast is so good. I think it's so necessary. I mean, I get inspired by it. Every time I'm listening to an episode, I'm like, damn, all right, I'm going to go revisit that record, actually. Yes. Like, I think it's brilliant. And man, everyone's very lucky for having this and for you to be doing this. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, thanks, dude. And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!